The candlelight flickered, casting a warm, celebratory glow across the penthouse suite. I, Caleb Reed, heir to the Reed Corporation, was married. An arrangement brokered to merge my family's corporate empire with the political dynasty of my new wife. And that wife, Isabel Vance, daughter of the influential Senator Harrison Vance, was sitting before the vanity mirror, still in her $1,000 designer wedding gown. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at her own reflection. Caleb, I'm only going to say this once, so listen carefully. Her voice was as cold as the marble floor. A Vance woman does not share her husband, not with his work, not with his family, and certainly not with another woman. I paused, my hand on the buckle of my belt. I thought I must have misheard her. She continued, each word a poison dart aimed directly at my heart. If you need an heir to carry on the Reed legacy, you can divorce me and marry someone else. Or, if you can't bear to lose the political capital of the Vance name, you can set up a mistress somewhere. I'll even raise the child as my own, list him on the family trust. She finally turned from the mirror, her eyes devoid of any warmth. But I, Isabel Vance, will never, ever have your child. The silence in the room was absolute. I looked at this woman, my wife in name only, a stranger I was contractually bound to. In a world where legacy is everything, where our union was a calculated move to secure the future of two dynasties, her words were not just a rejection. They were a declaration of war. She wasn't just refusing me. She was taking a sledgehammer to the very foundation of the Reed Corporation, to the legacy my grandfather and father had bled for. A cold fury ignited in my chest. Isabel, do you have any idea what you're saying? Her eyes met mine in the reflection. There was no bridal shyness, only a chilling, stubborn arrogance. Of course, I thought you, of all people, would understand. Understand? I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. What am I supposed to understand? That you're too pure, too enlightened to stoop to having the child of a man who deals in military contracts and corporate takeovers. I took a step closer. I have one question. Why wasn't this mentioned before the wedding? She flinched, her gaze flickering away for a second. Before, my father would have never agreed. So you played me? You played my entire family for fools. My voice was dangerously low. Isabel, did you really think that just because your father is Senator Vance, because this marriage was the talk of D.C., that I would just roll over and accept this? That I couldn't touch you? I was standing over her now, my shadow eclipsing her reflection. Have you read her prenup? Clause 7, subsection B. Mutual refusal to produce a viable heir constitutes immediate grounds for dissolution. Your little speech tonight? That's all my lawyers need to void this marriage before the ink on the certificate is even dry. Her face went pale. Her lips pressed into a thin, white line, but she refused to back down. You wouldn't dare, she whispered, a pathetic hint of defiance in her eyes. This merger, this marriage, was approved at the highest levels. If you divorce me now, you'll humiliate my father. You'll be telling the entire establishment that the Reeds can't control their own house. Oh, what a politician's daughter you are. I stared at her, a sudden, clarifying thought hitting me. Let me ask you one more thing. If my family had approached the Vances, not for a marriage, but for a different kind of merger, one where you were simply a high-profile mistress and not my wife, would you have agreed to that? The color drained from Isabel's face, then rushed back in a blotchy, red tide. Agreed? Her? The daughter of Senator Vance, the darling of the D.C. social scene, a mistress? She would rather die. But if she said no, what did that make her pronouncement tonight? She wanted the title, the power, and the prestige of being Mrs. Caleb Reed, but refused to fulfill the single most important duty that came with it. There was no logic in it, none at all. Cat got your tongue? I sneered, turning away to pour a glass of whiskey from the decanter on the bar. I downed it in one go, the burn a welcome distraction. Isabel dropped the act. You don't want a soulmate. You want the security of the Reed fortune and the status of being my wife, without any of the responsibility. You're not an idealist. You're just a selfish, spoiled child. She started trembling, her eyes welling up with tears of rage. You crude brute. What would you know? All you understand is legacy and heirs, like you're breeding livestock. You know nothing about love, about a true soulmate connection. A soulmate connection? I savored the bitter irony of the phrase. Just then, a young woman, one of Isabel's bridesmaids, scurried into the room, clutching a small, leather-bound portfolio. Isabel, Oh, she froze, sensing the toxic atmosphere in the room, her eyes wide with fear. A message from Julian. He said it was urgent. Isabel's face went completely white. I walked over and took the portfolio from the terrified girl's hand. I opened it right in front of my wife. Inside was a tablet displaying a long, rambling email. The writing was elegant, the sentiment sickening. My dearest Isabel, to know you are married is to feel a dagger in my soul. Caleb Reed is a man of industry, a corporate barbarian. How could he ever appreciate a spirit as delicate as yours? He desires you only as a vessel for his legacy, a means to an end. Such a man is unworthy of sharing your life. But what's done is done. I only pray you hold true to your heart, that you remain untainted by his world. Remember that our connection transcends the physical. We are two souls intertwined, a concept these common people could never hope to understand. The signature read, Julian Croft. I'd heard the name, some distant cousin of hers, a struggling artist who fancied himself a poet. Known for his pretentious critiques of the world, he was too weak to conquer. Her supposed childhood sweetheart. So that was it. The source of her soulmate delusion. The reason for her suicidal courage tonight. A woman who was secretly communicating with another man right before her wedding, being fed a diet of romantic nonsense, now had the audacity to lecture me on purity? I tossed the tablet onto the bed in front of her. This is your courage? An unemployed artist who writes angsty emails and hasn't had a gallery show in 3 years. He told you to hold true to your heart. Did he also tell you to humiliate your husband and disgrace your family on your wedding night? He talks about your transcendent connection, but he let you walk down the aisle to me. Why didn't he stop the wedding? Why didn't he elope with you? Because he doesn't have the courage or the capital to even propose a merger of his own. Don't you dare talk about him like that. Isabel shrieked, lunging for the tablet as if to protect it, her eyes wild with a fanatic's devotion. You'll never understand. A man like you could never understand. Watching her cradle that tablet like it was a holy relic, any last shred of sympathy I might have had for her evaporated. I was done. I couldn't waste another breath on this delusional woman. Fina, I don't understand. In that case, we have nothing more to say to each other. I turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? She cried out behind me. I didn't look back. To see my lawyer. I'm going to fix this. I went straight to my home office. The city was quiet, but my mind was racing. I had my assistant get our family's top lawyer on a video call. Under the sharp light of my desk lamp, I dictated the terms. By the time I was finished, the first hints of dawn were breaking over the Potomac. I hadn't slept, but I'd never felt more clear-headed. When my butler, Miles, knocked on the door, he was startled by the dark circles under my eyes. Mr. Reed, sir, are you? Miles, I cut him off, handing him a freshly printed document. Have a car ready. We're going to the Whitman, Sterling, and Croft offices. Whitman, Sterling, and Croft, the most powerful law firm in D.C., the place where the elite resolve their disputes, far from the prying eyes of the public. Marriages, divorces, corporate successions, it all happened in their soundproof boardrooms. Going there meant only one thing. The sham of the marriage was over. Miles looked at the document, a petition for dissolution of marriage, and his jaw went slack. Sir, you can't. This is the morning after your wedding. What will we tell the senator? Tell him. I gave a cold, humorless smile. What do I need to tell him? His daughter informed me last night that she will never provide an heir for the Reed family. Miles, you tell me. What am I supposed to tell my board of directors? My father? The legacy of this entire family. Miles was speechless, his shock turning to a quiet fury. Unconscionable. The Van Cess have gone too far. Exactly, I said, my voice hard as steel. So there's nothing more to discuss. Get the car and have a courier retrieve the original signed prenup from the main vault. I want this finalized by noon. Miles, knowing my temper, simply nodded and left. I changed out of my tuxedo and into a crisp business suit. I sat alone in my office and waited. It wasn't long before my father, General Marcus Reed, arrived, having heard the news. He stormed into the room, his eyes landing on the dissolution papers on my desk. His face was a thundercloud. "Caleb, what the hell is going on?" I stood and explained everything that had happened, without embellishment or emotion. When I finished, my father slammed his palm down on the desk. The solid oak shuddered. "That goddamn politician. Is this how Harrison Vance raises a daughter? What does he think the Reed Corporation is? A joke." The Reed family built its empire from the ground up, first with military service, then with shrewd, relentless business acumen. My father, a decorated four-star general before he took over the company, valued discipline and legacy above all else. Isabel's actions were a direct assault on everything he stood for. "Father, my mind is made up. This marriage ends today," I said, my voice firm. He studied me, his expression complex. After a long silence, he spoke. "You have to understand the consequences, son. Vance is a powerful man. He has allies all over the hill. Making an enemy of him is not good for business." "I know that, sir," I replied, meeting his gaze. "But the honor of this family is more important than any contract. She refuses to have children. I can't force her, but I will not allow the Reed line to end with me. A clean break now is better for everyone." I paused, a cold edge creeping into my tone. As for the senator, he's the one who failed to deliver on his end of the bargain. He raised a daughter who sabotaged this alliance. If he wants to save what's left of his reputation, he won't let this get ugly. My father stared at me for a long moment. Then a slow, proud smile spread across his face. He nodded. "Good. That's my son. Decisive. I'll back you. You do what you have to do. If he tries to start a war, I'll be right here with you." With his support, any lingering doubts vanished. News of the summons reached Isabel soon after. She had apparently assumed I was just sulking in my office and was preparing to send up a peace offering, some perfectly crafted brunch, to smooth things over. But instead of my forgiveness, she was met with a crisp, cold summons from the senior partners at Whitman, Sterling, and Croft. When the immaculately dressed junior associate from the law firm appeared at the penthouse door, holding a formal summons, Isabel froze. She was holding a tray with a single cup of coffee, her expression a perfect mask of disbelief. "Dissolution of marriage?" she stammered, as if the words were in a foreign language. "No, that's impossible." Her entourage of assistants and maids paled, sinking to their knees as if in the presence of a ghost. A divorce, filed the morning after the wedding and handled by the most ruthless lawyers in the city? It was an unprecedented level of humiliation. The reality of the situation finally hit her. She slammed the tray onto a table, the porcelain cup shattering. "Caleb, get out here," she screamed, storming toward my office. I was waiting for her in the doorway. She looked like a cornered animal, grabbing the lapels of my suit, her eyes red and frantic. "Caleb, are you insane? Is this some kind of sick game to force my hand? Bringing in the lawyers? Do you want to destroy both our families?" Even now, she thought it was a tactic, a negotiation. I looked at her, my expression unreadable. Gently, I pried her fingers one by one from my suit. "I'm not forcing you to do anything, Isabel. I'm giving you what you want. You wanted your one true love, didn't you? You didn't want to be tied down to me and my family. I'm setting you free. Go find your soulmate. What's the problem?" "You." She was speechless, shaking with fury. "You thought I was afraid? That I wouldn't dare offend your father?" I let out a low, humorless laugh. "Isabel, you have a vastly inflated sense of your own importance. The Reed Corporation was built on grit and steel, not political favors. My wife can be unremarkable. She can be unaccomplished, but she must understand loyalty. She must understand duty. She must stand with me and this family. And you are not worthy of a name. The car is waiting. The lawyers are on the clock. Get changed. Let's go." With that, I turned and walked away, not giving her a second glance. We took separate cars. The news was already starting to leak. The heir to the Reed fortune and the daughter of Senator Vance, at the city's top dissolution firm the morning after their wedding. A scandal of this magnitude was impossible to contain. I could feel the eyes of the entire city turning toward us. As we pulled up to the gleaming glass tower of the law office, a memory surfaced. It was from a few years ago at a joint services marksmanship competition. I was competing against a team from the Marine Corps. The final target was a difficult long-range shot under intense time pressure. Suddenly, a woman in the lane next to me fired. A clean, perfect shot, right through the center of the target, a split second before I pulled my own trigger. She was dressed in tactical gear, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She held the rifle with an expert's ease, her expression focused and fierce. She was General McKenna's youngest daughter, Sloane. She glanced over at me, not with flirtation or coyness, but with the confident grin of a fellow competitor. "Too slow, Reed," she'd said, her voice clear and bright. I hadn't been angry. I'd been impressed, deeply impressed. For the first time, I felt a spark of something more than just professional respect for a woman. But then I was sent overseas to manage the company's European expansion, and the moment was lost. I returned to D.C., to news of my arranged marriage to Isabel Vance. Fate has a twisted sense of humor. I took a deep breath, pushed the memory aside, and walked through the heavy glass doors into the lion's den. The boardroom at Whitman, Sterling and Croft, was paneled in dark mahogany, the air thick with the scent of old money and ruthless efficiency. The firm's senior partner, a man in his 70s with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of dynasties, sat at the head of a massive table. My father, Marcus Reed, sat on one side, his face like granite. On the other side was Senator Harrison Vance, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. His gaze was fixed on me, a look of pure hatred that promised political retribution. I ignored him and walked to the center of the room, giving a slight nod to the senior partner. "Mr. Whitman, I, Caleb Reed, am petitioning for the immediate dissolution of my marriage to Isabel Vance on the grounds of irreconcilable differences and a fundamental breach of our nuptial agreement." A collective intake of breath echoed through the silent room. No one had expected me to be so blunt. The phrasing was cold, corporate, and final. Senator Vance shot out of his chair, his finger trembling as he pointed it at me. "You dare? Reed, that is a malicious, baseless accusation. My daughter was in your care for less than 12 hours. On what grounds could you possibly claim a breach?" "Senator, please control yourself," I said calmly, turning to face him. "I'm not claiming she did anything. I am stating that she declared her intent to breach our agreement. She stated, unequivocally, that she would never bear a child for the Reed family. If you doubt my word, we can have her confirm it herself." Vance's face went rigid. He shot a desperate look at Isabel, who had just been escorted into the room. She was still in her wedding dress, looking pale and utterly lost. Seeing the powerful men assembled, especially her father's murderous glare, she seemed to shrink. But when her eyes met mine, that fear was replaced by a familiar, stubborn pride. She still thought this was a performance. My final, desperate gambit to bring her to heel. "Ms. Vance," Mr. Whitman said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of authority. "Is Mr. Reed's statement accurate? Did you inform him that you were unwilling to have children and fulfill the lineage clause of your marriage contract?" Every eye in the room was on her. She bit her lip, cornered. To admit it would be to confirm her culpability, to publicly humiliate her father and her family. To deny it would be a lie, and she knew I would have proof. Seeing his daughter's hesitation, Senator Vance knew it was true. "Isabel," he groaned, clutching his chest. "You foolish, foolish girl." A single tear traced a path down Isabel's cheek, but she remained silent. She just stared at me, her eyes pleading, defiant, and, for the first time, tinged with regret. She was waiting for me to call off the bluff, to offer her an out. She had profoundly misjudged her man. Ignoring her, I pulled a file from my briefcase. It contained a copy of our signed prenup and the dissolution papers I'd drawn up that morning. I handed them to an associate, who placed them on the table. "Mr. Whitman, here are the relevant documents. My signature and seal are already on the petition. Ms. Vance and I have fundamentally different life goals. Forcing this union would be a detriment to both families. The Reed Corporation requires an heir. I will not be the one to break a chain of legacy that has lasted for generations. I ask that you approve this dissolution, so we may both move on with our lives." When the associate slid the papers in front of Isabel, the cold, legal documents with my signature clear as day, the last ounce of certainty in her eyes shattered. She stared at the papers, then back at me. Her expression shifted from shock to panic and finally, to a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated terror. She finally understood. This was not a show. This was an execution. Just as Isabel seemed about to break, a Vance family aide hurried into the boardroom and whispered something to her assistant, who then relayed the message to Isabel. From across the table, I could just make out a few key words. Julian says, "A power play. Call his bluff. Stay strong." I had to suppress a laugh. Julian Croft, that pathetic, meddling fool. Even now, he was projecting his own petty, manipulative worldview onto me. He actually thought I was the kind of man who would orchestrate this multi-million-dollar legal spectacle, risking a war between two powerful families, just to scare my wife into submission. He judged everyone by his own worthless standard. And the tragedy was, Isabel believed him. His message was like a shot of adrenaline. The panic receded, replaced by a renewed, almost fanatical resolve. A flicker of color returned to her cheeks. Her eyes hardened with the defiant arrogance of someone who believes they've uncovered a grand deception. "It's just a game, Caleb, and I'm not playing anymore. You move." She straightened her back, picked up the expensive fountain pen on the table, and, without even reading the document, signed her name with a flourish. Isabel Vance. The signature was sharp, angry, and final. She slammed the pen down and looked up at me, a smug, challenging glint in her eye. She was waiting for me to explode, to show my regret, to leap across the table and tear the papers to shreds before begging her forgiveness. Senator Vance saw his daughter's signature and looked like he was about to have a stroke. My father, on the other hand, gave me a subtle, approving nod. Mr. Whitman glanced at Isabel, his expression a mixture of pity and contempt. He picked up a heavy, ornate seal, and with a resounding thud, stamped it onto both copies of the document. "It is done." With those words, the dust settled. The marriage was legally void. I stood, took my copy of the papers from the associate, and turned to leave. My movements were efficient, clean, without a single backward glance. Isabel's triumphant expression froze, then crumbled. None of what she had predicted came to pass. No outright, no regret, not even a flicker of emotion. I had simply concluded the business and was walking away as if I had just closed a minor real estate deal. "Caleb," her voice was sharp with a new, rising panic. She jumped from her chair and ran toward me. I didn't break my stride. "Wait, Caleb, stop." Her voice cracked, turning into a desperate sob. She tried to follow me out of the boardroom, but one of the firm's security guards discreetly blocked her path. "Ms. Vance, the proceedings are over," the guard said, his voice polite but firm. "Mr. Reed is no longer your husband. Please compose yourself." As I stepped out of the law office and into the bright D.C. sunlight, I let out a long, slow breath. The weight that had been crushing my chest for the last 12 hours was finally gone. I felt light. Miles was waiting by the car. He rushed over, a look of profound relief on his face. He leaned in and spoke in a low voice. "Sir, a package arrived for you just now, from Ms. Sloan McKenna." He handed me a flat, rectangular case. "Ms. McKenna's assistant said to tell you, a true leader is never hindered by a bad alliance. He charts his own course." I took the case from Miles and opened it. Inside, protected by velvet lining, was a framed, antique map. It was a detailed chart of the Normandy landings, a brilliant piece of military history, flawlessly preserved. The strategic lines, the troop movements, it was all there, a testament to courage and decisive action. In the bottom right corner, a small, elegant plaque was affixed. "For Caleb, may your path forward be clear of obstacles, and your victory swift." The engraving was signed, simply Sloan. I recognized the sentiment immediately. We had once had a long discussion about military history, about decisive moments that changed the world. I had mentioned my admiration for the audacity and brilliance of the D-Day campaign. I never imagined she would remember, or that she would choose this exact moment, the lowest and most pivotal of my recent life, to send such a perfect, symbolic gift. "May your path forward be clear of obstacles." It wasn't just a gift, it was a message. She understood the prison this marriage had become. She understood my decision, and she was offering not pity, but solidarity. The affirmation of a peer, an equal. Looking at the map, The anger and frustration that had been simmering inside me for a day finally cooled, replaced by a warmth I hadn't felt in years. A genuine smile touched my lips. At that moment, a gut-wrenching wail echoed from the entrance of the building. "Caleb, you can't just leave. Come back." I turned. Isabel was struggling against the security guards at the door, her hair a mess, her makeup streaked with tears. She looked nothing like the poised daughter of a senator. She looked like a woman whose world had just ended. She saw the case in my hands. She saw the smile on my face. And in that instant, whatever delusion she was clinging to, whatever hope she had left, completely disintegrated. She was an idiot. She could see the quality of the gift, and more importantly, she could see the genuine peace it brought me. She finally understood. This was never about calling her bluff. I never cared enough to play games with her. I was getting rid of her not to control her, but because my path forward was already waiting for me. That idiot Julian, his pathetic texts about power plays, her own arrogant belief that she had me figured out, it all collapsed into a single catastrophic joke. It was she who had thrown away the position of a lifetime. It was she who had signed her own name on the document that severed her future. "No, it can't be," she whispered, her body trembling as she sagged against the doorframe. Regret, fear, despair. The emotions washed over her, drowning her. "Caleb!" she screamed, a raw, primal sound of pure desperation. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. Give me another chance. I'll do it. I'll have your children. I'll do anything you want." Her cries attracted the attention of passers-by, of the paparazzi that were already starting to gather. Dozens of phones were now pointed in her direction, recording her complete and total breakdown for the world to see. I just watched her, my heart a frozen lake. There was no pity, no anger, no anything. Just nothing. Too little too late. I carefully closed the case and handed it to Miles. "Let's go home." I got into the car without a single look back. The sound of the engine was crisp and final. One road had just ended, but my destination was already in sight. Behind me, the sound of Isabel's sobbing was swallowed by the city noise. I was already driving toward my new beginning. The news of my instant divorce exploded across the internet in less than an hour. Page 6 had the headline, "Twitter was ablaze." An alliance that was meant to be the social event of the decade had imploded in the most humiliating way imaginable. It became the #1 topic of conversation, from the halls of Congress to the country clubs of Virginia. Rumors flew. Some painted me as a ruthless monster. But the moment the real reason leaked, Isabel's refusal to have children, public opinion swung decisively in my favor. In our world, the world of legacy fortunes and dynastic power, family continuity is paramount. Isabel's romantic idealism was seen as a childish, unforgivable betrayal. Suddenly, the Vance family was toxic. Senator Vance reportedly collapsed from the stress and went into seclusion, refusing all calls. In a fit of rage, he smashed Isabel's prized grand piano and called her a disgrace to the family name. Her mother was inconsolable, weeping over the spectacular future her daughter had single-handedly destroyed. The Vance residence in Georgetown became a fortress of misery. All of Isabel's fair-weather friends, the socialites and hangers-on, vanished overnight. She was now a pariah, a cautionary tale whispered about at cocktail parties. The woman rejected by the Reeds. The only person still in her corner was Julian Croft. He sent her emails filled with his usual brand of hollow, self-important prose. "My darling Isabel, do not despair. The universe tests its greatest souls with the heaviest burdens. Reed was a commoner who could never appreciate your spirit. By freeing yourself from that cage, our souls are now one." Before, she might have found comfort in those words. But now, having fallen from the pinnacle of society into a pit of shame, his pretentious ramblings sounded pathetic and absurd. Freedom? What was this freedom he spoke of? The freedom to be disowned by her father, ridiculed by her peers, and face a future with no prospects? The man who spoke of souls being one couldn't restore her reputation, couldn't appease her father's wrath, and certainly couldn't offer her a future that came close to the one she'd just thrown away. The regret was a physical poison, eating her alive. She was haunted by the memory of the life she'd had for less than a day, and the man she had so arrogantly dismissed. She had made a catastrophic mistake. Meanwhile, my life moved on. My father, far from being angry, was proud. He told his friends I had the true Reed grit. In the boardroom, a few of Vance's allies tried to float a motion questioning my stability, but my father and his loyalists shut them down immediately. The boy's marriage failed. He identified the problem and solved it decisively to protect the future of this company. Are you suggesting he should have let the problem fester for years, jeopardizing the entire line of succession? That would have been true irresponsibility. The argument was ironclad. Even the White House, when asked for comment, issued a bland statement about a private matter. The scandal, which could have been devastating, fizzled out. My reputation, instead of being tarnished, was enhanced. In the cutthroat world of the global elite, I was now seen as even more formidable, a man who put legacy above all else and was not afraid to make hard choices. I had made the right move. Isabel, by defying the unwritten laws of our world, had been cast out. 3 days after the divorce was finalized, I arranged a formal visit to the McKenna residence in Arlington, bringing with me a rare, first-edition copy of von Clausewitz's On War. The official reason was to thank Sloane for her gift. General Michael McKenna greeted me himself. He was a man cut from the same cloth as my father, tough, direct, and with a handshake that could crush stone. "Caleb, good to see you. No need for formalities. You and Sloane run in the same circles. She's always happiest talking tactics and hardware. Glad you two are connecting." His eyes held a look of deep approval. It was clear he sided with me in the divorce fiasco. For military families like ours, duty and legacy were sacred. Isabel's brand of self-indulgent drama was anathema. After a few minutes of pleasantries, the general excused himself, leaving Sloane and me alone. I found her at the family's private shooting range out back. She wasn't in a dress, but in practical cargo pants and a fitted shirt, her hair tied back. She was expertly disassembling and cleaning a custom-built sniper rifle. She looked up as I approached, her movements economical and precise. "Caleb," she said with a nod, her hands deftly working on a rifle's bolt assembly. Her face was flushed from concentration, her eyes bright and clear. "Sloane," I returned the greeting, offering the book, a small token of my thanks for the map. It was incredibly thoughtful. "It's just an old map. Don't mention it," she said, placing the book carefully on a nearby bench. Her gaze was direct, without a hint of artifice. "I heard what happened. You did the right thing. No gossip, no platitudes. Just a simple, direct statement of support." A warmth spread through my chest. To hear you say that means more than you know. A partnership is supposed to be about mutual support, moving forward together, she said, looking me straight in the eye. Not one person actively sabotaging the mission. The Reed legacy is too important. She didn't get it. That's her loss. Her clarity was like a breath of fresh air. Talking to her was effortless. There were no hidden meanings, no emotional minefields to navigate. Our values were perfectly aligned. "You're right," I said. Then, on an impulse I hadn't seen coming, I asked, "Sloane, what do you look for in a husband?" The question was blunt, and I immediately regretted it. But she didn't flinch. She just paused her work, wiped her hands on a rag, and answered with the same frankness she did everything else. "First, he has to be a man of substance, someone with ambition and a sense of duty, who understands that some things are bigger than himself. Second, he has to get me. He has to understand my love for this," she gestured to the rifle, "and my commitment to the values our families were built on. He has to know I'm not some delicate flower. As for poetry and romance, I don't have much time for that. If there's a real connection, great. If not, mutual respect, a shared mission, and a commitment to building a family and honoring our legacy. That's more than enough." Every word resonated deep in my bones. This was the daughter of a general. This was the woman who could stand beside me, not behind me. I looked at her strong, capable hands, and her clear, intelligent eyes, and a decision solidified in my mind, as clear and final as a gunshot. "Sloane," I said, my voice steady, "if I wanted to be that man, the one who respects you, who shares your mission, who wants to build a family and a legacy with you, would you be willing to consider it?" The air grew still. The confident smile on her face faltered just for a second. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something soft and vulnerable in those sharp eyes. A faint blush rose on her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Her gaze remained locked on mine. After a long moment, she gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes, Caleb," she said softly. "I would." The news of my engagement to Sloane McKenna, co-signed by both my father and General McKenna, was met with universal approval. This was the alliance everyone had been waiting for. Reed corporate power and McKenna military prestige. A true merger of titans. It was a story of strength, stability, and shared values. The press hailed it as a perfect match. The wedding was set for 3 months later. The previous scandal involving Isabel Vance was now just a bizarre footnote, making her look even more foolish and irrelevant in hindsight. Over the next few months, Sloane and I were inseparable. We didn't do fancy dinners or gallery openings. We went to the shooting range, rode horses at her family's Virginia estate, and spent hours debating corporate strategy and geopolitical risk. Our bond wasn't built on flowery words, but on a deep, unspoken mutual respect. It was more real and more solid than any romance I could have imagined. I felt a sense of peace and rightness that I'd never known. 3 days before my wedding to Sloane, I received a message from Isabel. She wanted to meet. I hesitated but agreed. It was time to close that chapter for good. We met at a quiet cafe. She was shockingly thin, dressed in drab clothing that hung off her frame. The arrogant, untouchable woman I had married was gone. In her place was a ghost, haunted by regret. "Caleb," she began, her voice trembling as soon as she saw me. I heard you're getting married." "I am," I said, my tone neutral. "Sloane McKenna. She's a good woman, isn't she?" "She's the best." My simple, honest answer seemed to shatter her. Tears streamed down her pale cheeks. "I was wrong, Caleb. I know that now. I was so stupid. I listened to Julian. Please, give me one more chance. I don't need to be your wife. I'll be your mistress, anything. I'll have your children. I'll do whatever it takes." She felt her knees right there in the cafe, grabbing my hand, her words a desperate, pathetic torrent. Looking down at her, I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a profound sense of detachment. I gently removed my hand from her grasp and stood up. "It's too late, Isabel." My voice was quiet, but it cut through her sobs like a razor. "We all have to live with the consequences of our choices. You chose to reject our marriage. You chose to sign those papers. You chose your own path. I am not some prize you can discard and then reclaim when you're bored. The Reed family is not a sanctuary you can burn down and then ask for shelter in the ruins." I looked at her one last time. "As for Julian, I heard he was exposed for some petty fraud and run out of town. You should be grateful you didn't get your wish of a life with him. His future is even bleaker than yours." With that, I turned and walked out. "Caleb," she screamed behind me, a sound of pure, soul-deep despair. I didn't look back. Some mistakes can't be unmade. 3 days later, I stood waiting at the altar. The church was filled with the most powerful people in the nation. When Sloane walked down the aisle, radiant and strong in her wedding dress, a sense of absolute certainty settled over me. This was right. Later that night, in our room, the celebration finally over, she looked at me. Her eyes were bright, full of a shy joy, but still held that core of unshakable strength. "Husband," she said softly. I took her hands in mine. "Sloane," I said, my voice filled with a conviction I had never felt before. "From this day forward, we are a team. Your honor is my honor. Your fight is my fight." She squeezed my hands, her grip firm, her gaze unwavering. A brilliant smile lit up her face. "Your fight is my fight," she repeated. I smiled back. I was finally home. My real future had just begun.